At every moment, we need to know if something is true or not. And a very easy way to tell is ask yourself one question. Who is talking? Facing me, you see the burial place of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, in fact, had to hide in a cave. It's not too far away in Pekin. And there he was in a cave for 13 years, hidden from the Roman government. This whole area that you're seeing here is the Galil, the north of Israel. And the Roman government for a while was in control. And the reason he had to hide is because of a story. The story goes that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and another two rabbis, I think it was Rabbi Yossi and another rabbi, they were sitting in the Beis Medrash in the Torah study hall. And they were discussing Rome. And if you're here in Israel, you'll see the Roman aqueducts. You'll see literally the architecture, the tremendous, brilliant engineering that Rome brought to Israel. Bridges. They had a way of heating up water for bathhouses. They had a way of moving water systems, which of course is very important from place to place. I mean, there are like 1,000-kilometer long kind of, if you want to call it, it was like a pipeline to pipe water from one place to another place. So on one hand, one of the rabbis said, look what Rome did. Rome has enhanced Israel, has brought this technology to Israel. Another rabbi didn't want to say anything, so he was silent. The third rabbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, said, no, everything that Rome did, it did it for itself. It made bathhouses because they wanted to have hot baths. They weren't doing it for Israel. They're subjugating Israel. They made bridges so they could collect taxes. They moved water because they're thirsty. They weren't helping Israel at all. And this is one of the fundamental ideas in life. You have to understand the motive. You have to understand the person who's speaking. So sometimes you'll get, right now we're dealing with a situation in Israel. Literally, Israel was savagely, murderously attacked, the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. And then you have morons who are saying, oh, the people in Gaza are suffering. So what's going on? Why are they saying this? Why would the President of the United States say not to conquer Rafah? Why would they say to create a ceasefire, which is to empower them once again to do it again, which they're saying that they're going to do? The answer is very simple. You have to always know who's saying what. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai had to flee for his life because he said what he said, but he was right. In our lives, in all the lives of the ever lived and ever will live, there are only three types of voices. Every single time you do something, if you go to the fridge, it's because you're either bored, maybe you're hungry, maybe your wife asked you to get her something, but there's always a motive. If you're saying something, right now I'm speaking to you, there's a motive. There's always a motive. So you have to understand the motive. And basically there are only three motives in this world. And when you understand the motives and you understand what is the motivation behind something, as the Baal Shem Tov says, if you can see or light is the same words as Ra's secret. If you can see the secret behind it, you shed its light, you understand it. So the highest motive is the motive of convictions. I'm doing something because it's right. And that comes from our mind, it comes from our soul, it comes from the Torah, it comes from a higher place. The second motive is like a child. Child, if you ever go into nursery school, one child will grab something from another child and say, mine! Now what's his motive? His motive is not justice, it's not yours. His motive is that he wants that thing. His motive is his body. So, as opposed to the mind that is looking objectively, looking rationally, looking compassionately, looking altruistically, looking conscientiously, the body is looking at it from the perspective of, can I get it? I want it. Can I? Should I or shouldn't I? Is it in my interest? Is it not? That's how every single animal behaves. And an animal's barking, it's because he's thinking in a way, or he's feeling, how does this help me? How does this hurt me? It's all emotions. It's all about me. But the worst is the ego. And that's the destructive force. Whenever you're seeing people or groups of people that are antagonistic. Yesterday I was interviewed by an international TV station about the situation. I said, people are trying to compare what's going on in Israel. This is not a war between two people. This is the war between the values of truth, of justice, of kindness, of human rights, of rights for all people. And those people, namely the Islamic violent terrorists, which really is part of at least 50 million people, is part of the Islamic fundamental religion, which is how Islam spread, which is to literally subjugate everybody under its basically whatever they believe. And they're even evil to each other, because violence and the idea of tyranny, the idea that the sword, in fact, the symbol of Islam is like a sickle, it's like a sword. It's about really just Islam. It means to submit. It means to literally. Muhammad went. Imam told me, every year of his leadership, 30 years, he was involved in 4 wars, and these weren't just wars. These were like gang violence, just like raping and killing and taking over other people's stuff. And this is who their leader is, and they spread 100 years after his death using this. No group in the history of the world has killed more people than Islam, over 700 million people. Just in India, 400 million people. This is the most heinous, violent group in human history. So we're not dealing with two sides. We're dealing with good versus pure ego. And the ego, exactly like Hitler, is I have the power to kill you, and I have the desire to kill you because I hate myself so much that I need you to be destroyed. And that's really what happened. Islam was made by an Arab, and Arabs have a lot of shame. I know they don't like it when I say this, but the Qazi who wrote a book, The Mind of Terror, he was a former terrorist, and he wrote this. He has a PhD, and he told me that they have this shame going back 4,000 years from when Yishmael was kicked out of the house. It's interesting, in the Quran, they actually changed the story of the Torah, that Yishmael becomes the favored son. So we see this tremendous, tremendous shame leading them to have a narcissistic personality, to try to go against reality, to create a new reality, one of pride, and the pride is based on putting other people down. And that's the way we all are. Whenever a person's feeling down, they have a need to put other people down. Now, you could feel down because you're internally shamed, but you could feel down because you're externally shamed. When we feel down because we're externally shamed, we have this desire and the need to put others down. And so these are the 3 possibilities. There are no other possibilities. And love talks with compassion, the body talks with emotion, and shaming talks with derision. And if you can just notice those 3 things, compassion, emotion, and derision. Obama, I don't want to mention him, but he's a very good example of this. Everything was deriding. I called him the shamer in chief. In fact, the reason Trump became president, because he invited him to the White House. It's a disgusting thing to do. And then he derided him publicly. He shamed him publicly for 10 minutes, and you can check that out. And afterwards, Trump said, I will be the next president. So the point is that kind of notion of derision is the great evil in this world. And so let us tell where we're speaking from. Are we speaking from compassion, respect? Are we speaking from emotion, desire, maybe need? Or are we speaking from narcissism and savagery and delusions of grandeur and putting others down, derision?